Oh, it smells in here. No, it's all right. Hey, how you doing?
It's just great.
Oh, trust me, I know that. Yeah. How you doing? Good to see everybody. Yeah, so here we are in a tiny room. I'm probably wondering why I called this meeting. Well, yeah, no, we're meeting each other at an interesting time. It's like I finished the Empath record this year, and it was after DTP and everything. I just really didn't want to do what I've been doing. It's like things were getting really intense, and you know, it's like the bigger that you get, I think, as an artist, the less control you have over what you do. And it started getting to this point recently where there was a lot of like you know, expectation for what it is that I am to be doing in the future and everything, and I just didn't want to do it. So I broke up the band, and then I put out Empath. And Empath, in my estimation, is, somebody explained that's how they made chocolate milk, is that while they're making milk, the tubes get full of the fat and all the schmeg that, and in order to make chocolate milk, they just blast cocoa through the pipes, and they're like, poof, you got chocolate milk. But actually the whole procedure is ultimately about cleaning the pipes, right? So I did that, and Empath actually has done better than all the other records, which is surprising and also disconcerting, because it means I can't kind of pull back as much as I want. But my decision was to do acoustic tours for a year, just to sort of be a little more like in situations like this, which seem to be a lot more in line with what it is that I ultimately want to do. But the first tour that I'm starting up again is in October, and so I've got 10 people on stage in Europe, and it's a nightmare. And then I got the festivals next year, and we're like doing all the Wacken and Woodstock, and I don't have a band for it yet, but it'll be great. And then I'm doing this big festival thing in India with an Indian band, so it's great. So I'm kind of like, everywhere I go, I'm just trying to hire like different groups of people, and then while I'm figuring it out, it gives me a chance to sort of like do this, right? So yeah, let's play some music. I just finished 4 months of touring with acoustic, and I gotta go out again. So the next thing is Australia and China and Dubai and Singapore. But I've only been home for 2 days, so I'm like, it's so weird to be playing again. But thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just give me a second to figure it out. I'll play some I'll play some music. Like I said, I got home a couple days ago and I haven't had a shower. But I'll play some music. Then if you have any questions, we can do that. And then at the end, anything you'd like signed or any photos or anything, like I'm happy to do so. All right, boys. It's just you and me. Let's do this shit. Hey. Come on in, my love. Come in, don't be a stranger. There are times, many when myself I've done stranger. I let it roll, let it sing. Come what may, anyway, I was born not to follow. Mike's house party. All right, yeah, don't get any drinks on the floor.
Let me go home. But why run away? Why?
Whoa!
And all we're feeling slowly comes we're fearing comes to Don't Did you know that time is not a straight line? Everything that you learn, now it's gone, gone away. You take your turn if you choose to learn. Everything that you learn, now it's gone, gone away. Yeah, it's gone, gone away. Yeah, it's gone, gone, and the world is gone, and we find there's no one that's waiting for your light to come, and we're on your own, and we find there's no one that's waiting for your light at all. We're on your own, and we find there's no one that's waiting for your light at all. It's gonna be loud, buddy. It's gonna be loud, right? I must rise. I must find a way, my friends, for this insolence, for this year. I tell you from the bottom of my infinite soul, Ziltoid, you must surely anyway, so Baby Shark. God, that song sucks. Anybody got any questions? Anybody have any questions? Like a question, maybe? If you had a question, then I'd answer it. Yes, sir.
Are you a fan of Frank Zappa?
Not really.
No?
No, I really like Captain Beefheart, though.
Okay.
Reason I don't I think Frank Zappa is brilliant. I think he's a genius. I know his kids. It's just that I've found that the thing that I look for in music is typically like an emotional thing. And because he's really left-brained about it, I always interpreted his music as being condescending in a strange sense. like, I'm gonna get people who are really smart to wear fezzes and say googly moogly, you know what I mean? But, I mean, Mike Keneally is now in the band, right? So when we're, at his place 3 days ago in San Diego, and we're just learning the material, and he's the musical director for the Zappa hologram tour and all this, right? So, and Morgan, who's playing drums on the first thing, was also with Zappa, and so I'm surrounded, Vi and Scott Tunis. I'm surrounded by people. I know Amit, I know Moon. Everybody is a Zappa fan, and for me, I mean, I think he's brilliant. It's just that, in a sense, I find that even the family dynamic within the Zappas is so dysfunctional. And as a result of that, I can't help but feel that maybe he put his work over prioritizing the mental health of his kids, which I think is also, I don't think music is that important, to be honest. So in a sense, I interpret his work as being something that is scientific in a way that I can appreciate but don't emotionally resonate with. Yeah. But Captain Beefheart, on the other hand, I love it because he was crazy and had no idea. So I always listened to his music and I always thought he was like, I'm writing a love song. You know what I mean? It's like, and the lady's just like, really, dude? Yeah. So I like that because I always got that like he was a passionate dude, and I really appreciate that in music.
Because a friend of mine, I told him I'm coming here.
Yeah.
And I had a +1. My girlfriend said no, so I asked a couple fellas, who wants to come see Devin? And they had rehearsals, they had birthday parties, and okay, got it. But one of them said, you're a modern day Frank Zappa. Just because of the amount of material coming out.
Well, I can appreciate, and I mean, I think the thing I did appreciate about his work is like the creative freedom.
Yes.
And I can certainly relate to that, but I think I come at it from a different place. I think for me, as a child, the family that I was with, I was very loving, but we were not encouraged to display emotions in a very overt way. So the loophole for me, as somebody who was quite sensitive, was through music. And so all my music ended up being this kind of byproduct of trying to figure out my emotional development, which for whatever reason has been stunted for a very long time. And so the prolific nature of what I have done, specifically recently, I think has also been rooted in a avoidance in a certain way. Having children and everything it's super intense, but then being on the road, like in 2016, I was gone for 11 months, and then it started becoming, same thing happened with strapping, like we did Download and Ozfest, and it was getting more and more popular. But then I think, well, your definition as an artist will be that. And same with DTP, it's like it becomes more and more popular, and it becomes more of a product. And my goals in life are much more to try and actualize myself as a person, and music is the byproduct of that. So trying to find a balance between notoriety and creative freedom is much more important to me than pursuing fame. So in a lot of ways, this last year has been consciously, like I want to step back from it and do exactly what I want to do with the people that I want to do without, if you do this, you'll make $1 million. If you do this, you'll make, X amount of dollars. But using Zappa is almost like an example of that. At what cost,
Yes.
right? Because I think people pursue fame in such a dogged way at this point, but you build this house that then you're stuck in, right? And I've got a bunch of friends who are very famous who I see their lives, I'm like, I don't want that. You get a boat, but you're stuck in it in a way. So I appreciate the creative freedom of Zappa, though, for sure. And I thought the fart jokes were great. So, but thank you for the compliment, by the way, if it was one.
No, what?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Just a couple things. I bought your Ocean Machine pedal.
Oh, awesome.
I love it.
Thank you.
I used it on a recording that we just done. So.
What's your band called?
Robots and Gods.
Awesome.
A local band.
Yeah.
I know you guys.
But the drummer, this is Ryan. We've been fans since we were teenagers.
Starfish Room.
Oh my God. Yeah.
We saw Ocean Machine at the Starfish Room. Blew us away, and just want to thank you so much for putting such amazing music. And one of the things I love is it's so diverse.
Yeah.
And one of the things that kind of struck me was when you came out with Ocean Machine. In the liner notes, it said "sellout."
Yeah.
It's your name, and is that? I mean, it seemed to be you're on that kind of a trajectory of mainstream, huge.
Yeah.
Kind of that big notoriety that you're talking about, and then you kind of shifted.
I don't want it.
To, yeah.
I just don't want it.
Yeah,
Even last year, we did the Plovdiv show and the orchestra, and then Royal Albert Hall. Next year we're doing Empath at Sydney Opera House, Royal Albert Hall again. Like all this stuff is really cool.
Yeah.
But it has to be on my terms, or else it's the thing that fuels my desire to do it is keeping some semblance of balance emotionally, and that lifestyle as kind of seductive as it is just, it's not a real environment, you know, like, go ahead.
Yeah, just one question.
Sure.
About your songwriting.
Yeah.
The structure, like how do you approach writing a song? Is
Okay.
it, do you start with a basic structure, first chorus, bridge, chorus, or do you just throw all your ideas at once?
Well, it happens in three ways. In the first way, there's a certain amount of the music that I've come across, because I never really consider artists of any sort, no matter how much they claim to have written it, I never really consider music or art to be a product of the artist, as much as you have a moment of emotional significance somewhere in your life, whether or not that is birth or death or something, you know. And in that moment, there's something that resonates with like truth that is beyond us. And as artists, I think whether or not it's insecurity or narcissism or a need for validation or whatever, or just you're so blown away by that experience that through your bias, whatever that is, you know, in my case, white, middle class, Canadian male, you know what I mean? Bald, unfortunately. That's my bias. And so I try and interpret that moment of truth through the bias. And then if people listen to it and they resonate with it on some level, what they're resonating with, in my opinion, is something that's beyond the artist, and your job is to just articulate it. So that's in one way for writing. It happens like, well, I'll be sleeping and I'll wake up with a song in my head, like Effervescent was that, or Awake, like they were all songs that were in dreams, and I just woke up and I got a guitar beside my bed and I'll and then go record it. Or what I'll do is I'll record it into my phone and then mail it to myself. I wake up in the morning with just all this mumbly, like for real. The second way I do it is I've got a template set up in my DAW. I've got 3 DAWs that I typically use, Pro Tools mainly, but then Ableton and Logic. And I'll have the Pro Tools session set up specifically so that every track that I could possibly use is pre-assigned. So it's one guitar cable that goes into a distribution unit that if I arm the heavy tracks, it's my heavy sound. If I arm the bass track, it's a bass. So it's really quick, you know, and I use the Evertune on my guitar, and it's like, you know, everything's always kind of ready to go. And then I use a DAW almost like a sketch pad, and I just kind of throw a bunch of stuff down there and then manipulate it and move it and then sit with it. And that's kind of like putting together a jigsaw puzzle, and it's basically over the past 10 years that I started doing that, you know, basically starting from Ziltoid, right? And then the third way is I just get together with people, but I find that my patience for people, not people, but musicians in a lot of ways now, specifically when people have like a real sense of importance to it, I love music. It's so much a part of me. Like it's like indistinguishable from me in my own mind in a lot of ways. Yet, in absence of it, I don't think I'd be useless. You know what I mean? Like I still have people that help me move, and you know what I mean? I think I'm fairly together in that sense. So when I jam with people, a lot of times, specific people who are younger than me now, you know, where they're not as broken, but they're just like, oh, this is the most important thing ever. Oh my God, we're gonna do this, and I'm just like, oh God, no. In fact, I find that adhering that sense of importance to artistic endeavors is almost the antithesis of improvisation in a way, because it becomes so precious that if you screw it up, there's this real sense of like, oh, I'm a failure. I have made a mistake. And you know, improv, meditation, any of these things, I think it's a real similar process of just like, just fuck it, let it go, you know. And so writing with musicians tends to be a real pain, unless I'm with people who are also broken, I guess. But you know, like a lot of this first tour we're doing in Europe with this first Empath band, which is like literally 10 people on stage. It's like no backing tracks, no clicks, you know, like it's a whole different thing. But it's like Keneally and Morgan Ogren and this German ambient guitar named Marcus Ruder. He does like orchestral stuff. You know him? Isn't he brilliant?
Yeah.
He's brilliant.
Yeah, totally.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, and then bass is Nathan on this one, and then got a keyboard player, and Che, who sings in Casualties Are Cool, is doing the female parts in guitar, and we got a 3-person choir, and a beach theme. You know what I mean? But a lot of that's improv as well, and those guys like Morgan Harkin is this drummer, but he was on Cavs, he's on Empath, he was with Frederick and a bunch of things, but he's great for me to play with because you never stop. You can just start playing, and then by the end of it, you've just got 2 hours of stuff. 4 minutes of which is interesting, but it's like I forget where we were going with that. So basically, those are basically the 3 or 4 ways that I write. Yeah, man. Yes.
What was some of the issues you had with the Nolly mix at Empath? Like, what did you change from that to what we got?
Well, I mean, Nolly's mix, Nolly's brilliant. He's a much better mixing engineer than I. But the thing that I needed to focus on, even to the detriment of some of the sounds, you know what I mean? Like the guitars don't sound as cool as Nolly's guitar, or like the overall frequency spectrum is maybe a little narrower or whatever. But in order for him to achieve the sounds that he does, which works so brilliantly, he compresses and limits very heavily, and then cranks a snare, so the explosive sound of the snare comes through. But by doing that with orchestras, choirs, drummers, like all these tracks, I just lost all the work, and it ended up sounding like a metal record in a way. And so I chose to do it again and just focus more on like the precision of those bits, right? But Nolly's amazing. He's a good buddy too. So, yes.
What's the quickest a song fell out of you?
What's that?
The quickest a song fell out of you.
Quickest song that fell out of me. Truth. Yeah, I remember just following the, and then going. What was it? The quickest, but I mean, there's a lot of them that are quick, right? Like certain sections are quick, like that. What was that one record? Z2. The end of that, where it's that ending thing was just like a vomit. Right? But I mean, honestly, dude, like I'm rolling almost 30 records now. That's hundreds of songs. I don't remember any of them now. People are like, you remember that song? And I'm like, I totally don't. Don't remember the lyrics, don't remember the chords, I tend to record and then forget about it promptly.
That's why people don't get their favorite songs when you go see your favorite band.
Well, and I also think at a certain level when you're touring, you're just trying to find the most convenient thing to like so you're not killing all the musicians, right? Like, so I'm like, yeah, guys, you can play Life, like. Couple more questions and then I'll play another song. Yes.
Where did you get your Oscar the Grouch boxers?
I got those at a Target in Arizona. But I found out after is they're not. They are boxers. Yeah, I thought they were shorts. But they're undies, man. And it's got like the dink door and like the whole work. But I still wear them as shorts with undies underneath. And then I hang the wallet over top of the belt, and I wore those specifically to irritate a buddy of mine, and then ended up being like, oh, they're not really. So. Another question? Yes.
Could you just explain your
Sure.
setup a little bit?
So this whole year, prior to doing, because I've got 3 or 4 different bands that I'm now going to be starting up with, and all these tours are being booked, but I wanted to spend some time thinking. I didn't want to go straight out into touring and all the social engineering that goes into being in a band. So I just took this, and this is what I've been touring with. Like all the acoustic stuff has been this, and I set it up myself, and it's great. So basically it's Axe FX 3, which is brilliant because it's got 4 sets of stereo outs, and it also acts as the interface for Ableton. This piece of gear here is called the Push, and what it is an interface for Ableton, but in the ways that I'm using it now, I'm using it as like to trigger samples and do some keyboards and what have you. But I highly recommend to any of you who are musicians to just go online and look up Ableton Push 2, because this thing is an instrument unlike any other instrument that I've ever experienced. It's phenomenal. So I ended up writing Evermore with that off the Empath record. and what's the other one? Methuselah. It's a jammy improv, samples, drums, keyboards, vocals, loops, everything, and it's so alien, man. I just love it. But right now I just got it, so basically each one of these are color coded, because the way I think of music is often referred to as like synesthesia, I guess, where like an A is red, and a B is orange, and a G is green, and a D is blue, and a F is a different green, you know what I mean? And C is blue and a circle, and a G is a triangle. It's like everything kind of, remember on the Alien record, the Strapping record, there's that first song, Skeksis, is about that. Except I was a little more angry than I am now. Who knows? Maybe I just had more energy. So as a result of that, each one of these remind me of a certain tonality. You can change the like everything I do here corresponds there, right? So you see the clip, and I can change the color of the clip here, and if I do so, you'll see that it changes on there too, right? Now it's the blue. But I know that one should be red because I'm a banana. So, and then I've got this foot pedal here that fades it in. So I'm running, in the Axe effects, I'm running into two different chains. One of them for the guitar. So I've got a loom there that sends 6 outputs. One of them is a dry guitar, which would be like this. And then the other, then I got a stereo goo, which is... People often say, hey, you use so much echo, what's your reason for using that? And for me, it's a compositional tool, more so than, hey, I just want to have a lot of echo and everything. It's, as I write, because most of my writing, whether or not it's the orchestral stuff or this opera that we're doing, this moth thing or strapping or whatever, it starts with just me and a guitar. And as opposed to writing with people, I use the echo to interact with. So if I hit this note, I hear how that interacts with that. You know what I mean? So echo for me is just, it's like essential for my process. So after those two, I've got another chain that the Ableton runs into, that when I trigger one of these, I can use this to fade it in. And so what I've done is I just make those samples, and with this push, I can, at any time, I could change the pitch, right? I could be like, but because it's got so much echo on it, it takes a while for it to morph, But you can, now it's down an octave, right? But each one of these things, I've got it set for a different note. So this one is like open C, and it's just a tambour, right? And if I wanted to move it up to D, I could move it up to...
No, apparently not.
Right? And then this one I know is like my F. So I've just kind of got it so I can kind of have some sort of watercolors behind. And then this is just a bunch of, hippie shit, like wind chimes and whatever.
Beautiful.
Thank you. And then, some dude going, whoa. Let's see. Is that him?
Crickets. Crickets.
Yeah. So he's just... But I could even move it, like at any time I can just take that and just be like, now it's up an octave. And then, so each one of these, I know this is like this chord. And they're just things that I'll work on here because it's such a great sound design tool that I can just like screw around with it. And then this is for different, this is like some different vibes. It's basically a bunch of just goo. And then, this guy talking about acid or something. And then when I do live, I do this sort of gimmicky version of a strapping song that I use this creepy thing. Right?
shark thing, it bypasses all the outputs and then goes to a separate output. So at any time I could have like the, you know what I mean? Or like, this is great. This is this German song. If you haven't heard this, it's about a crocodile. Have you heard this? It's so good. The song's called Schnappi. The song will get stuck in your head like.
Ich bin Schnappi, das kleine Krokodil. Komm aus Ägypten,
Hear the chorus?
fliegt direkt an mir. Zuerst lag ich in einem Ei, dann schnappte ich mich frei. Schnappi, 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 Schnapp. Schnappi, 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 Schnapp.
So that song was like some guy taped his 6-year-old daughter singing about a crocodile. And then Rammstein did a cover of it. And then another thing that I've got this set up for, although I could do a ton of things, is I've got a bunch of instruments. So at any time, if I wanted to like, you know, I just go to note, and now this becomes a keyboard. And because I've got it set up, I play typically in Lydian, you know what I mean? This sort of suspended thing is everything. So this is set that everything that's lit adheres to that scale. So I can just sort of jam with it. And anything that's green is my root note, which is C, so. Right? So you can do that. Cool if that was the loudest thing I've ever heard. That'd be awesome. So yeah, and so, but if I wanted to, you press the scale button here. Check this out, and then it gives you all the scales that you want. So I can like scroll to whatever. I can go to like, you know, there now it's in Phrygian or Locrian or diminished or you know what I mean. So it's really a great way to sort of play with yourself, right? And so that's how I've got it used. But in terms of how it would be used to write, you can set it to record and auto quantize everything that you put into it. So you set your tempo, you set up your drum pad. It's got a ton of drum sounds there. You jam it, quantizes it. You press this, you go to your bass track. You automatically play. You can set it for a 2-bar loop, and then you can set each like group of sounds as one particular part, like a verse or a chorus, and then you can just like scroll between all those things, and it's absolutely astonishing, this thing, right? This here, it's just a wireless unit, line 6, hooray. Bought this for $50, piece of shit. This is my computer that I dropped 3 times on this last tour, but it still works, so hooray for that. And this guitar, you know, always with the we. India and Tel Aviv and like all these things, and this guitar is made by a company in Vancouver called Prestige. And, but this thing took a couple of brutal spills, but it totally did it. It like totally worked. It's like I've been married now for 30 years, and I figure the same thing. Anything in my life, it's like if it's fragile, we're just not gonna have a lot to do together, right? So when this thing hit the dirt, I was just kind of like, oh shit, tell me it didn't break. It's like bumped, and it was just like, no, let's play a gig. So that's good. And then I think Chris fixed it today, so thanks. And he put some Sharpie on it to make it pretty again. In the back of this rack, I've got a radial 8-channel DI. So basically, all these tracks, the 4 stereo tracks, go to those 8 outs with a core cable. So when you go to play at a venue, because you know, anybody who plays a gig knows that every monitor engineer is just an asshole. And he's just looking for a reason to make you feel bad about it. He's like, well, what do you guys got? And I was like, well, you know, I'm looking for a mic stand. He's like, oh. So the least I have to ask for people, you know, because when I tour with like a band, I don't have to be on my own. We got, you know, like the one in November, we've got 2 buses and there's like 19 people. It's so freaking expensive. But for this, it's just me. Like they said, well, you can bring a tech, it'll cost you $200 a day. And I was like, or I could do it myself and eat $200 worth of food a day, right? So what I did was I set up the core cable, so when I show up to the venue, I give them the thing. I'm like, there, plug that in. And he's like, Well, I don't like the color green. And this microphone is a Shure microphone, and it's a KSM8. And the reason I think it's cool is because it's got 2 capsules, and what that means is, like the normal microphones look like this, the SM58. The proximity, in order to get it to sound good, you have to be really close.